Commander Varys stood before Lecture Hall 9, all four arms folded across his ridged chest plate. The faint ch-ch of his mandibles echoed against the polished walls, a sound that, among his species, meant pride. The scars that traced his obsidian carapace told stories longer than his service record. 30 years of battles, victories, and losses etched right into his shell. The gold and violet insignia of the Galactic Dominion shimmered across his shoulder plates, but those were decorations, pretty lies next to the truth carved into his body. And that, he began, his voice carried smoothly through every translator implant in the room, is why humans are the most over-celebrated creatures in the known spiral. 24 cadets of 12 species sat in tiered seats, eyes, sensors, and photoreceptors focused on him. A timid Velnari in the third row raised one glimmering tentacle. "But, Commander Varys, sir," she asked through a trembling translator tone, "records say humans evolved on a Class 12 hazard world. Wouldn't that make them dangerous?" Varys let out a rasp that might have been laughter or contempt. "Class 12? Yes, terrifying indeed." He waved a dominant arm dismissively. "Let me tell you what the reports won't. The truth hidden under politics and peace treaties." He began to pace, 6 legs clicking over the platform with the confidence of someone used to owning a room. 8 years ago, during the Archeon Rift campaign, I led a strike unit of Dominion shock troopers. We intercepted a damaged human scout craft drifting through neutral space. 5 aboard. Just 5. The hall fell silent. Even the perpetually distracted Vorn student, who normally hid behind his datapad, looked up. "Their propaganda," Varys said, "would have you believe these creatures are apex predators, unstoppable nightmares from a world of storms. But do you want the truth?" He stopped, turned, eyes glittering in the cold light. "They die like anyone else, screaming, bleeding, begging." A collective breath rippled through the hall. Varys continued, voice dropping to something almost conversational, worse because of its calm. "We breached their hull in under 4 minutes. Their primitive weapons, those little metal slug projectiles, barely scratched our armor." He gestured idly. "The first human fell before even firing. The second managed 3 rounds, all bouncing harmlessly off Sergeant Kreth's chest plate before Kreth vaporized his skull with a plasma bolt." A Fendari cadet in front twitched, fur standing on end. The remaining 3 locked themselves in the command module. It took us another 6 minutes to cut through. When we entered, Varys paused for effect. They tried to negotiate, as if they had a choice. "What happened to them?" asked Jay Sar, a scaled Peltharian whose voice quivered. Varys's mandibles spread in something that might have been a grin. "We were ordered to leave no witnesses. After what their fleet did to our listening post, we made sure the lesson lasted, though they didn't." The lecture hall became a mosaic of alien reactions, revulsion, fascination, even admiration. Varys basked in it. Fear was respect. Respect was control. "So remember this," he concluded, stepping back to his desk. "Humans bleed, they break, they die, and when they do, they whimper. That's all you need to know about your so-called apex predators." A holographic syllabus flickered to life. "Tomorrow," Varys added casually, "we'll have a new cadet joining tactical theory, part of some diplomatic exchange, a human." The Velnari's tentacles went stiff. "Is that safe?" Varys laughed, a harsh metallic rattle. "Safe? You're in more danger from the cafeteria's nutrition paste than from any human. Trust me, I've killed enough of them to know." The dismissal chime rang. Students gathered their devices, whispering excitedly about the commander's story. Varys leaned back in his chair, pleased. Tomorrow would be entertaining. Perhaps he'd make the new arrival give a presentation on human combat inefficiency. He couldn't have known how prophetic that thought was, just not in the way he imagined. He was mid-lecture the next day, diagramming the structural weaknesses of endoskeletal species when the door hissed open. The sound cut through his words like a laser through armor. A human stepped inside, smaller than he expected. 1.7 meters, maybe. Skin of sun-brown tone, dark hair tied back in what the database called a ponytail. Coalition uniform, gray and blue, did little to enhance her stature, but her eyes, brown, steady, unblinking. Too calm. "You're late," Varys snapped. "Corporal Kira Vance, Earth Alliance Marines," she said, voice steady, almost bored. "Transport delays. Security wanted to triple-check my file." No apology. Just facts. Irritating. "Well then, Corporal Vance," Varys said, gesturing to the back seat. Take your place. We were just discussing how fragile skeleton-bearing species truly are. Dozens of alien eyes tracked her ascent. Tentacles recoiled, scales paled, even the Vorn student froze. She moved with effortless precision, too smooth, too quiet. When she sat down, she smiled, not wide, just enough. The kind of smile that says you'll understand the joke later. "Please, Commander," she said calmly. "Don't let me interrupt. You were explaining how endoskeletons are inferior." Her tone was polite, her presence wasn't. Varys straightened. "As I was saying," he continued, regaining authority, "such species, especially humans, are soft targets. Skin and bone, easy to damage, easy to kill." "Interesting," Kira murmured. "Is that theoretical or personal experience?" The question hung in the air like a primed explosive. Varys's mandibles twitched. "Both," he said finally. "I've dealt with your kind personally. 8 years ago, Archeon Rift, 5 humans, all dead within minutes." Kira's expression didn't change. 8 years, she repeated softly. 5 crew, and suddenly the air felt heavier. Every cadet sensed the pressure shift, the calm before something catastrophic. "Please," she said quietly, "tell me more about how easy it was." The arena was alive with noise, excitement, tension, and the unmistakable buzz of a crowd hungry for spectacle. Students filled the viewing decks, their colors shifting through nervous yellows and eager crimsons as betting figures flashed across private screens. Someone shouted that the wager pool had passed 4,000 credits. Someone else laughed, taking the underdog bet on the human. The odds were 20-1 against her. Commander Vex found the entire thing amusing. Someone was about to waste their credits. Then the opposite doors parted, and she stepped through. Kira Vance, the human exchange cadet, had changed out of the Academy's formal uniform. She wore a simple gray training shirt and black combat pants, the kind of attire meant for motion, not show. Her boots were scuffed, her sleeves rolled. No armor, no visible tech, just her. She walked to her side of the arena, stretching lightly, rolling her neck until the bones in her spine gave a series of sharp cracks that made several spectators wince. Then she bent forward, touched her toes, and straightened again with the unhurried calm of someone about to take a stroll rather than enter a duel. From the gallery, Lieutenant Reth called out. One of Vex's old comrades turned instructor. The Krillnath veteran leaned over the railing, mandibles clicking in concern. "Vex," he warned quietly when the commander approached. "A word before you start." Vex exhaled through his gills in irritation. "Make it quick, Reth. I'm about to give the students a proper demonstration." "That's what I'm afraid of," Reth replied. "I looked into her record, the parts that weren't sealed. She's no Academy novice, 16 combat deployments, twice decorated under fire, and the rest locked under clearance levels that even I can't access." Vex waved him off with a scoff. "She's human. I've killed 5 of them. Records don't matter when the body is weak." "Look again," Reth muttered, mandibles lowering. "Tell me that looks weak to you." Against his better judgment, Vex did. Kira was stretching again, fluid, balanced, calm. Her eyes tracked the space, never nervous, never uncertain. "I see a small, overconfident mammal," Vex said dryly, "and she's about to learn humility." "Your funeral," Reth sighed, backing away. The arena master entered then, a neutral official, silver robes glinting beneath the floodlights. His voice echoed across the amphitheater as he announced the rules. No lethal force, match ends on incapacitation or submission, medics standing by. "Combatants," the arbiter said, "do you understand and accept?" "Accepted," Vex declared proudly. "Accepted," Kira replied, and cracked her knuckles with a sound that made the first 2 rows flinch. They took their positions. Vex dropped into a wide-legged Krillnath battle stance, arms coiled and ready. It was a pose that had carried him through decades of combat, solid, disciplined, deadly. Kira just stood there, feet apart, hands loose, posture casual. She looked more like she was waiting for a bus than facing a creature 3 times her size. The arena went silent. "Begin!" Vex launched himself forward with the speed of a missile, 6 legs pounding the floor, all momentum and fury. His first strike was aimed dead center, meant to flatten her before she could blink. He hit nothing. She wasn't there anymore. One instant she was in front of him, the next she was at his side, inside his reach, her hand clamping down on a joint just below the armor ridge of his arm. A twist, sudden, precise, and white-hot pain flooded through him. The joint screamed, his vision blurred. He reacted on instinct, swinging with his secondary arms, but she had already slipped free, moving like water through gaps that shouldn't exist. Her leg hooked one of his forward limbs and yanked. His footing vanished. He stumbled, caught himself, barely. Then came the strike. Her elbow slammed into the cluster of neural nodes beneath his sensory ridge. A thunderclap of pain detonated in his head. Light, noise, disorientation. The crowd gasped as he staggered back, flailing, all four arms slicing through empty space. Kira didn't let him breathe. Her fist drove into his thorax, right under the primary breathing ridge. The impact made his lungs seize. Air hissed from him involuntarily. Armor that had turned aside plasma fire did nothing against that compact human punch. His balance broke again. No, impossible. He was a warrior, a legend. He roared and surged forward a second time, trying a new pattern, a feint, a real strike, a trap meant to crush her between four converging arms. She didn't dodge, she stepped in. Her forearm caught the blow, absorbed it, redirected it, physics and anatomy in perfect harmony. Then her open palm came up, striking under his mandibles. His head snapped back hard, the shock rattling his brain inside its shell. Vex reeled, dizzy, his eyes struggling to focus, and saw only movement. Kira closing the distance again. Her knee found the same neural point she'd struck before. His legs gave way. The floor met his body. He tried to rise, but his limbs no longer obeyed. Then she was on him, lightweight, but all leverage. One knee pressed against his breathing ridge, her hand positioned perfectly on his throat, pinning his secondary airway. "Yield," she said quietly. No anger, no triumph, just truth. Vex thrashed, tried to push her off. Nothing. His strength had evaporated. His body refused him. "I said yield." Her hand pressed just enough to remind him how easily she could end this. The message was clear. "I yield," he wheezed. The arbiter called the match, but Kira didn't stand immediately. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper meant for him alone. "The Meridian," she said softly. "Captain James Hartford, Engineer Marcus Webb, Security Officer Lisa Tanaka, Communications Officer David Park, Medic Terry Chen. Names, human names, not numbers, not statistics. They were the crew of the scout ship you destroyed 8 years ago," she continued. "Terry Chen was my commanding officer's husband. He was unarmed. He was trying to surrender when you killed him." Vex froze, all 8 eyes wide. "You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous?" Kira's voice rose so everyone could hear. "It's not our world. It's not our bones or our strength. It's that we remember every name, every loss, and when we find those responsible," her gaze locked on his, "we make sure they understand what they took." She stood then, stepped off him, and walked away. 47 seconds, she said over her shoulder. "That's how long you lasted against one unarmed human, and I went easy because lethal force is forbidden here." The smile she gave him was sharp and merciless. "Still think we're weak?" Vex lay there, shattered. Not just physically, but completely. For the first time since his youth, he felt true fear. Not of death, of understanding. Humans weren't fragile. They were forged in hardship. Hunters from a world that never stopped trying to kill them, and they carried that defiance into the stars. Around the arena, students whispered. Bets were settled. The human had won. Lieutenant Reth just shook his head and muttered, "I warned you, brother." The medics arrived, scanning, patching that, speaking in hushed tones. Vex barely heard them. The pain didn't come from his fractured joint or bruised neural cluster. It came from the collapse of everything he believed about dominance and power. Hours later, in the quiet of the medical bay, he sat slumped on an exam table while the doctor worked on his arm. She chirped cheerfully about his fortunate survival, noting that the human had shown remarkable restraint, precision strikes, deliberate avoidance of fatal points. He barely listened. Then the door opened and Dean Torvin entered, vast, six-eyed, carrying disappointment like a weapon. "Doctor, leave us," the dean said. The room emptied, leaving Vex alone under the weight of silence. Torvin settled into a reinforced chair that groaned under his mass. "Tell me," he said evenly, "why one of my most decorated instructors was humiliated in front of half the academy by a new arrival on her first day." Vex had no answer, none that wouldn't make him sound even smaller. Torvin scrolled through a data tablet, eyes flicking across the screen. "Corporal Kira Vance," he read aloud. "Earth Alliance Marines, 16 combat deployments across 4 sectors, 2 silver commendations for valor, 1 from the Proxima conflict. another from Kepler. He lowered the tablet and looked at Vex, the silence between them heavier than gravity itself. "You've made quite an impression, Commander," the Dean said finally, "just not the kind you intended." The silence in the medical bay was suffocating. Dean Torvin's words still echoed in Vex's mind long after the massive figure had left the room. Each sentence had landed harder than Kira's strikes. Precise, devastating, undeniable. She wasn't some random exchange cadet. She was a decorated human operative, a combat instructor, a strategist, a survivor of 16 deployments, and a member of a classified human special operations unit. The kind of soldier who didn't just fight wars, she trained the ones who did. Vex sat motionless, his mandibles trembling. The truth was a blade, and Torvin had twisted it deep. He hadn't just been beaten, he had been exposed. By morning, every cadet, every instructor, every sentient being in Nexus Point Academy would know. The feeds were already spreading across the data networks. Krillnath Commander defeated by human cadet in 47 seconds. The number repeated like a curse. 47 seconds, the time it took to destroy a reputation built over decades. Torvin's parting words lingered. "You let arrogance blind you, Vex, and now the whole Academy sees it." He'd ordered Vex to issue a public apology, to attend cross-species bias and trauma awareness sessions. It was humiliating, but worse, it was deserved. Outside the medbay, the story grew into legend. Students whispered, professors argued. Instructors who once dismissed human physiology as fragile were rewriting their notes. The biology department debated how humans could move, react, and endure beyond predicted limits. And every combat instructor quietly agreed, from now on, no one would underestimate a human again. In the dormitories, bets were settled. In classrooms, theories were shared. And across the Academy's networks, one phrase took root: 47 seconds. A warning, a reminder, a story. Meanwhile, across campus, Kira Vance was alone in a training room, her movements sharp, deliberate, silent. To her, the duel was already done. Another day, another lesson. Tomorrow she'd teach again, calm, professional, unaffected. For her, it wasn't personal revenge. It was correction. Weeks passed. Vex healed physically, but inside, something still fractured. The nightmares came often, faces he hadn't remembered in years. The crew of the Meridian, the human medic he'd executed under the guise of tactical necessity. He saw their eyes now, no longer enemies, just people. Kira had forced him to see what he'd buried under pride and orders. The Academy changed after that. Where once humans walked in silence, now others greeted them with wary respect. The term Deathworlder was spoken softly, no longer mockery, but acknowledgement. Vex's classes shrank. His voice carried less weight. Students no longer looked at him with admiration, only caution or pity. But he kept teaching, though his tone had changed. One morning, as he lectured about intelligence gathering before battle, he paused. His gaze drifted across the room. "This," he said slowly, "is why you never assume you understand your opponent. Size, strength, species, none of it means victory. What matters is discipline, adaptability, and respect." A student hesitated before asking, "Instructor Vex, should we fear humans?" Vex exhaled through his spiracles and shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "You don't fear them. You respect them. Fear is ignorance. Respect comes from understanding." That night, alone in his quarters, Vex did something he hadn't done in years. He pulled up the personnel records of the humans who died aboard the Meridian. Not the tactical summaries, but the personal ones. Their photos, families, and final logs. He looked at each face and whispered their names. Then he began to write. 5 letters, one for each family. Apologies too late to change anything, but written because silence was worse. He didn't know if he'd ever send them, but writing them was the first time in years that something inside him felt lighter. 47 seconds. That was all it took for Kira Vance to destroy the illusion he'd built his life upon. Now, when he heard the words Deathworlder or human, it no longer carried contempt. It carried truth. Because humans weren't terrifying because of their planet. They were terrifying because they survived it. Every loss, every scar, every memory turned into a lesson, and they never forgot. They were persistence made flesh, and when challenged, they didn't roar or threaten. They simply remembered, and then they acted. Vex leaned back in the quiet, a bitter smile touching his mandibles. "Respect the Deathworlders," he murmured to himself, "especially the ones who smile when you threaten them." 47 seconds. That number would follow him forever, not as shame, but as understanding.